Now it's time for a business spotlight. This is the Adelaide Project.
Hello and welcome to the Adelaide Project Business Spotlight, brought to you by podcastcity.com.au. If you're looking for a way to engage with your audience and get out your amazing content, then you need to speak to them about producing, recording, editing, videoing and distributing your very own podcast. Just go to podcastcity.com.au. I'm Ron Fiedler and I am so glad to bring you more inspiring guests to the Adelaide Project Business Spotlight. Today on the podcast and radio show, you're going to be taking on a spiritual adventure with a person who helps people to clear trauma and emotional baggage by getting in touch with your intuition and body wisdom, which can lead to clarity, easier decision-making, greater self-esteem, action, and purpose. Our guest today helps people to clear their blocks and connect their dots. She is a best-selling international author who has written 2 books, and her mission statement is to connect, inspire, educate, and collaborate with people, communities, and places, bringing greater awareness to inspire others to follow their heart's deepest calling. I'm pleased to welcome to the Adelaide Project radio show and podcast, Prema Joy from The Spiritual Adventurer. Prema, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, and thanks. I'm really glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here too. Look, I had a look at your website and I've had a browse over your books, and I can tell you this is going to be a great talk today. You're someone that's going to inspire, help, and also going to give the listeners some food for thought, and I'm really glad that you have joined us. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Tell the listeners about you and how you came on this spiritual adventure.
Yes, sure. Well, it's wonderful to hear you say those things about me, but it wasn't always the way of things.
Yeah.
So a little bit about me. I'm born in England, 2 older brothers. When I was 12, my father died, and I was the one that found him.
Oh.
And as you can imagine, that was a huge trauma.
Yeah.
And then a few short months later, we left England and came to Australia. And so I left behind my father. I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral either. My mum thought I was too young, so I didn't get to say goodbye. Then I left my home, my other family, friends, school, everything that I knew got left behind. And as a 12-year-old going on 13-year-old, I didn't have any way or knowing of how to express that grief or the feelings that I had. And, I mean, most people will know most teenagers keep things bottled up, and that's exactly what I did. We came to Australia a couple of years later. My mum remarried. I had to go and live with my brother. And at 16, I ran away with my ex-husband, he is now, and went into a domestic violence relationship for 18 years.
Can I just interrupt one thing?
Yeah.
I find a lot of people that have trauma in their life, victims of domestic violence. Do you find that as well?
I think that there can be victims of some kind of violence, abuse. It could be domestic, but it can also be sexual. It can be from other dimensions. But yes, there is a lot of people who've gone through trauma, through domestic violence, but it can be from, being in a war zone, or there's several different ways as well. But,
yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Please
No,
continue
that's
on.
okay. So no problem. So basically what happened was I was married for 11 years out of those 18 years, had 2 children, and life in domestic violence is not very pleasant. My daily life I was really lived in a lot of fear, and my nerves were frazzled to the very edge. But I did become a very heavy drinker because that was socially acceptable in my family and in his family.
Yes.
And so the only way that I could stop my fear was by drinking. Then at one point I started to sort of wake up to this isn't quite right. I've been in denial for a long time, and I started to wake up to what was happening a little bit outside of my sphere. Because in those days, they didn't talk about domestic violence. It wasn't brought out. It wasn't talked about like it is today. So I was sitting up late. My husband was asleep, and I was sitting up in the family room in a chair, and I couldn't sleep. And I was sitting there, and I had this feeling that went through my body like an electric shock. And it was my intuition speaking to me so loudly. And it said to me, if I don't get out of my marriage, I'll be dead by the time I'm 50.
Wow.
So this really put the withers up me, as people would say. It really made me take action. It made me make a decision. And I left my ex-husband, even though it was terrifying. I had 2 children. I became a single mum. I left him and I started on an adventure, as people might call it too, a spiritual adventure, because I started for the first time to really delve into the depths of myself and get to know who I was.
Yes.
And I started to look at things on another level. So I was opening up to things in all sorts of ways. I went and saw an astrologer and I had a past life reading. And then I myself became a tarot reader and intuitive reader and an astrologer. And so there were all these ways in which I was opening up. And still, even through that period of time as I was opening, I still felt like a victim. So I still felt like I had a hole that I couldn't fill up. And it wasn't until I started to do the journey work, when I came to the journey work, that I really started to explore the deeper feelings that I had kept shut down. You know, that grief had stayed in my body for 36 years. And it wasn't until I did the journey work that I was able to express that grief, that I was able to express the anger, the emotions and all of the things that I never got to express. And a lot of that through my relationship with my ex-husband.
Yeah.
And through the experience that I had of my father dying and then losing everything and then being abandoned, if you like, by my mother again, there was a way in which I had shut down feelings and I hadn't known how to feel or express. And so the journey work, I went on to a deeper healing of really clearing all of that emotion.
Yes.
And with that came the experience of opening and sharing and then becoming a practitioner. And now I've been a practitioner now for 18 years.
Wow.
And so the healing and working with other people, what it's given me is this ability to create a safe space for others to come into and to embrace their trauma or their emotions or things that have happened to them in the past that they haven't been able to deal with, that somehow just still hang around. It's like having a backpack that you can't get rid of. It's always there, and no matter how much you try to push it down, somehow it bubbles up in different ways, and it sabotages your life. And you don't always understand that. It's, I just feel hurt. I feel depressed. I've got anxiety. These are all the symptoms, but when you can get to the root cause, which is usually the emotion that's been trapped or the emotion and the experience that you've never got to express, then we can do the healing. And so that's how I work with people. And because I have had, the wounded healer, if you like, is that
you've had a lived experience.
I've had a lived experience. And also then on top of that, the tools that I've learned to work with people.
Now, very interesting you said that you had that moment where you realised that something had to change or else you may be deceased.
Yeah.
Probably back then you were on your own. There weren't the services we have today. There weren't the practitioners we have today.
That's correct.
How did you go about leaving that situation, having nothing? There was probably nowhere. You couldn't just simply go to maybe even a charity at that time and ask for help.
I couldn't.
That was so brave of you to do it. Can you just let our listeners know a little bit how you did that?
Well, fortunately for me, I did have my mum and my dad and my stepdad.
Yeah.
I did explain to them that I wanted to leave my ex-husband and I wanted to get a divorce. I actually knew I wanted to get a divorce. And my mum's first reaction was, divorce? No, you can't get divorced. That's just not something that, that wouldn't be right. No one's been divorced in the family.
Yeah.
So there was that whole thing that came at me. And then I really thought, what am I going to do? But then she something in her shifted.
Yes.
And I then planned. So because I didn't know what my ex-husband's reactions would be,
yes.
I had to make a plan. So I basically planned for months in advance.
Oh, okay. So this wasn't just an overnight thing.
No, I planned for months in advance because I did not know what his reaction would be. And my first priority was keeping my children safe.
Yes.
And in the school holidays, my children would go to my mum. She lived at Aldinga, and they would go there for a week. And so I planned it for when they would be out of the house.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I wanted them to go like a normal thing that they would go to Aldinga, and then I would tell him.
Yes.
And that way there was no way they could be hurt or injured or any of those things because I was living with physical domestic violence, real fear, as well as, the emotional and everything else.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that with our listeners because there's people out there in some similar situation to you, and at least they know that there is a journey that they can take to get out of it. And this is where you come in because you've had trauma in your life, you've had lived experience, and this is why you've changed and become a practitioner and also do these sort of programs to help people get rid of that trauma. And it's great that, you can share that with us. Now, Prema, I see that you have been trained by Brandon Bays, who is the founder of the Journey Method. Can you tell us more about this?
Sure. So Brandon discovered a tumour the size of a basketball nearly 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And she healed it herself completely in 6.5 weeks with no medical treatment at all. And during that time, she birthed this process and then it's evolved over those years. So I learned to become a practitioner and work with the process. It's a cellular healing. So the body is made up of cells.
Yes.
And as I spoke about from my own self, when I found my father dead, that became a cellular memory that got locked in the body.
And
what happens is that when there is something that happens in childhood, and it doesn't have to be a big trauma like mine, it can be where you may have been humiliated in front of the teacher a few times, or you didn't get first prize, you kept coming second, or whatever it is. It can be abuse, it can be a whole lot of things, but there's a way in which when we don't get to express in that moment the emotions and or the voice or the expression of what needs to be said and spoken and felt, that it gets locked into the cells and we shut it down.
Yes.
So when we do that, the cells that are shut down, they can become susceptible to disease. So that it opens you up years later to have diabetes or anxiety or depression or even cancer. So there's a way in which the cells completely shut down. So the Journey Method is a root cause that gets to the cellular memory that's causing the symptom. So in today's medicine, the doctor will give you go to the doctor, you say, I've got anxiety, and they will treat that. This cellular method treats the root cause, what's causing the anxiety, and it's usually linked right back to certain things that have happened in childhood, and then they've created beliefs and other ways in which you talk to yourself, the voice that's in your head that tells you certain things all the time that's been created from your childhood. And then along with the shutdown, so it's the method gets to all of that, gives that inner child, that younger you, a way of expressing what they didn't get to express at that time. And then there's a huge letting go in the body. And when there's a huge letting go in the body, then there's a way in which people are able to forgive and let go and forgive themselves. So forgiveness isn't something that you got to go and get to heal. Forgiveness is something that happens when you let go automatically. And so it's working with that healing of yourself. And so being able to access the memory the experience with you as a child gets to speak.
Yeah.
And then you empty all of that out. And when that happens, there's a shift and the cell that replicates in a healthy way.
Look, I 100% believe in this because I've heard of so many people through stress, through things that have happened in their life, having health issues. And to get rid of those, as you say, excess baggage, the root cause of it is a relief. And I've seen people change overnight when they've relieved themselves from such traumatic experiences or from stress.
Absolutely. I've had clients who have held on to things for 50 years.
Yeah.
And you can actually watch it leave the body.
Yeah.
It's amazing because the transformation, and it can happen overnight and it can happen over a period of weeks or months.
Yes.
It's not a Band-Aid.
No.
You know, it is really a healing system of working with yourself, but it sure does create huge transformation in your life.
I've seen it if people have seen The Green Mile where John Coffey goes to that lady and takes her I think it was cancer out. We're not saying that this is what's going to happen, but this is what I'm saying, the transformation after she relieved herself from that. Was beautiful. And that's where I've seen people, basically something has changed in their life for the better, and the transformation of them has just made them look, feel, have a different outlook on life. And it's just amazing. And I really encourage people to look at this sort of stuff because hanging on to trauma can only just lead to more trauma, really, can't it?
Absolutely. The beautiful thing about the journey work, which I really personally love, is that nobody tells you what the emotion or what the memory is going to be. It comes from your own body wisdom.
Yes.
And the other thing is that the body actually never gives you more than you can cope with.
Oh, okay. Yes,
so
yes.
it is amazing. And the other thing about the journey work or the method is that it teaches you to feel your feelings in your body. So not to create a story, but to actually feel feelings in the body, allow feelings. And when we do that, when we fully allow a feeling, no matter what it is, whether it's rage or desperation or loneliness or even joy, it lasts for approximately maybe 30 seconds. Maybe a minute if you're lucky.
Wow.
When you allow it to come fully, it comes and it goes on its own.
Oh, wow.
It's when we hold on to a story, when we are constantly telling ourselves a story in our mind, that we can hold on to an emotion which is not really being felt.
Yes.
It's a story.
Unbelievable. That's amazing. And I suppose also when we look at it, when you first started, this was probably pioneering stuff. It wasn't something that was in the mainstream medical field or in the mainstream alternative medicines. It was something that was probably looked at through voodoo and witchcraft compared to what it is today, where this is actually done in hospitals, it's done in clinics, and it's part of government policy in some cases.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true, yeah.
Amazing. Look, you're also, I'm so impressed with what you've done, but you've also written 2 books. Where did you get the time to do all this when you've been doing all this, helping people? Can you tell us more about the books?
Sure. So the first book that I wrote is called Heartwork Living on a Prayer, and this is really the story of my life with some creative influence. The book is really about going from your head to your heart. It's about learning to trust yourself and how that happened for me.
Yeah.
And then being able to really live life from a place of being in your heart, not always in your mind.
Yes.
So being able to trust your body, being able to trust yourself, even when there are times when you think that, oh my God, really, is this what I really have to do? And then it works out perfectly. So it's a way in which the universe can conspire to come together when you let it,
Yes.
when you allow it, when you get out of the way. And so that book was written. Actually, it started off as a short story because I'd been writing short stories for a magazine.
Yes.
And I thought I was writing another short story.
Yeah.
And so
it became a long story.
But then it just kept getting longer and longer. And I thought, oh, actually, I think this is a book. And so, so it was a book. And the second one was written, I wrote a chapter along with 20 other beautiful, inspirational, amazing women who were telling their story. And so I was telling my story in that one much more about the domestic violence and what that was like to live with, to go through the healing, and then who I am now compared to who I was.
Wow, yeah.
With domestic violence, because, as far as I sort of felt, the elements of my story in the book is that there's something that leads you into domestic violence, which is usually your self-esteem.
Yes.
You want love.
Yes.
You want something like that. Then there's denial. Then there's the victim. You start to go, okay, I'm a victim, and you start to realize that.
Yeah.
And then you can stay stuck in the victim if you don't want to start taking responsibility for your part in it. So if you don't want to start owning those feelings, the part of you that's ashamed, the part of you that is, the yucky part that said yes.
Yes.
Once you start to do that and you start to forgive yourself, then you can go on to thrive. And then you really empower yourself.
Yes.
And domestic violence then you can really get free from it. It's not a part of your story anymore.
I find a lot of people that do go through domestic violence, the freedom is what they never realised they could have.
Yes.
And it's very important to know that if you are in this situation, that there are people that can help you. And once you're out of that, you can then start the healing process and start getting someone like yourself to help them get rid of the trauma to live that full life. When you were writing these books, was it an emotional journey for you as well? In the sense of, did you go back to anger, happiness,
Some of it,
sad?
yes. Some of it, yes. Particularly the domestic violence thing. So some of that definitely was a healing process for me. And I've got 2 daughters, and I protected them so much when they were younger.
Yes.
And actually one of my oldest daughters, she edited my chapter. She read it.
Yeah.
And that was really huge for her and for me, because for me there was a deep letting go.
Yes.
And a realization of how much I'd held back on the feelings and the ways in which, because, I'm so completely different now to what I was. And like you say, that healing really empowers you to, write books.
Yeah.
Go, the things that I've done since all of those things.
Yes.
I've trekked in the Grand Canyon. I've climbed mountains in India. I've thrown myself in the Ganges. I've sat with masters. I've worked with women and gone to Africa and raised $6,000 and worked with the kids in the slums. And so all of these things, while I was in domestic violence, would never ever have entered my head that I could do anything. It was like I was a little mouse that was just scurrying everywhere and terrified of everything.
But you found your voice, which is great. And unfortunately, it had to come through some tragedy and trauma. But the thing is that you are a person that people can look up to think, I can get out of this situation. I'm not Robinson Crusoe. I'm not the only one doing this. There are other people who have come out of it at the other end and now living their life to their best.
Exactly. And I am an actual leading experience of that. And I definitely, I'm willing and would love to work with anyone who wants to empower themselves in that way.
Let's talk about that, because you talk about encouraging people to act about what they want to do and follow their dreams.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Okay, so, I work with people depending on what it is that they want. So obviously, first of all, we have to work out what is their dream? What is it that they want to do? And that usually comes from their values and getting to really know who they are, what they believe about themselves, what they care about.
Yeah.
Instead of what their mother told them they had to do or what their family's already always done.
Yes.
So it's working out what they truly want and why. Why is it important to them? Because that's a really important question.
Yes.
And once we start to work with that, why and what is going on and why they want it, then we can start to work with their passion. I can start to work with them to show them that it's possible.
Yes, yes.
And then as a coach, I work with them to really take steps, decisive steps, where they make it – and I'm not telling them what to do. This is about encouraging people to come up with their own actions.
So you're guiding them along the way and then they're making the decisions themselves.
They make the decisions themselves, but I do hold them. To those actions. I hold them accountable to those actions. And this can be with anything, with changing jobs. It can be with wanting a holiday. It could be with changing their whole budget system. It could be with clearing the clutter from their house.
Yes.
It could be going on losing weight or getting rid of the emotional eating.
Yeah.
It can be a whole range of things, whatever that person wants to do, and it can be. Often it is they want to change careers or they want to do something that they've never, ever given themselves permissions to do. Like they want to take singing lessons, for instance, like anything that they want to do, which is a calling from their heart.
Yes.
Which people are not always tuned into because a lot of people are in their mind constantly. And the problem with the mind is that it changes all the time, and it tells a lot of stories, a lot of lies.
Unfortunately, a lot of negative ones.
A lot of negative ones where people say, I would love to be a singer. Oh, but, that time that my mom, no, you can't sing, you're terrible. Or I'd love to paint. Oh, no, you haven't got a creative bone in your body.
Yeah.
And there's ways in which people want to, but they can't get past that fear of stepping into it. And so I help them really to just
help them
step into it, get on with it, do it. Yeah. Let's do it.
I think sometimes you need someone who you don't know to encourage you to do it. And they're looking at from an outside point of view. They're not, I think a lot of people, especially friends and family, don't want you to succeed because they're not going to succeed. They're not going to take the risk that you're going to take. So they want to pull you down where someone like yourself brings them up.
Yes. And there's always people that will tell you the worst thing that could happen.
Yes. But they don't tell you what the best thing is going to happen.
They don't tell you the best thing that could happen.
That's right.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So I think of myself as like being the cheerleading squad. But also, it's like if you're the CEO of your own life and you employ me.
Yep.
And my job is entirely to make sure that you succeed at what it is that you want to do. Wow. That's all I do.
Yeah. To have someone like that on your team, it's only going to make your life better. So it's really good to hear that. And as Dr. Seuss said, why do you want to blend in when you can stick out?
Well, and the thing is that everybody has something that they can do that is authentic to themselves.
Yes.
That is a gift. And the problem is that they're not sharing it.
No,
they're too afraid.
Exactly right. We don't have enough people sharing their gifts. There's a lot of people that have some extraordinary talents and they keep it to themselves. Imagine the world if people were sharing their gifts and their talents.
Yep, exactly.
Definitely. Look, you do have services. People can come and see you and get help with what their problems are. Can you go through some of the different services and the benefits of them?
Sure. So I do one-on-one coaching, which I've just really been talking about just now.
Yep.
So that's really about helping people to move forward, to make a decision, to take action, to take a step-by-step process towards something and doing it in a way where they're building momentum, doing it in a way where their overwhelm disappears and they get to really clear any blocks and things that are in the way. Then I work with people one-to-one in the journey work, which is the deeper healing, the emotions and the trauma and the things that are stopping them from moving forward in their life, where they feel stuck or they feel depressed or they feel anxious. So working with people to really heal and clear those things that are happening, the things that are really stopping them, then they get to the next stage where they want to take action. But often there's a deeper healing that has to happen with some of these people first.
Yeah. So, Prema, just backtracking on that, everyone's different. So you're putting solutions together depending on what their situation is.
Absolutely. Yep. So I offer an 8-week coaching course, but that 8-week coaching course is, although it has points through it, it's tailored to the person.
Right.
So it may look like a certain way, and then sometimes it will take a right corner because there's some other form of tool that I need to bring in that helps that person to clear something completely. And so there's an 8-week course which I call my successful results course.
Yep.
And they do that over 8 weeks. It can be online, it can be in person. Most of the time it's online or over the phone.
Yes.
And goes for about an hour a week.
Great.
Roughly.
Great.
Then the journey work is one-on-one. Again, can be done online. It can be done in person.
Yes.
And that can go anywhere between 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah.
That can be spread out. It's not sort of done over it can be done every week.
Yeah.
But we like to leave a bit of space for integration because it's a deep level healing.
Yes.
So the body can integrate all of the healing that's taken place.
Yeah.
And then they get to really see shifts. And so I can work with people for, every 2 weeks, for a few months, or sometimes people will come in with something.
Yeah.
So just to give you a quick example, I'm allowed to use this if that's okay.
Yeah.
Just so people get a better idea of the journey work. I had a client who came to see me who had been in relationships, but she never wanted to make a decision. So what would happen is she would never make a decision. She would give all the decisions to her partner, and then she would get shitty and angry because the partner was making all the decisions.
Yeah.
So then the relationship would break up.
Yeah.
But she couldn't ever make a decision herself.
Yes.
So we went to a memory of her when she was about 3 years old, and she was on a picnic with her parents, and somehow she strayed away from the picnic and she got herself caught on a barbed wire fence. And her dress was stuck. If she tried to move forward off that fence, it hurt. And if she tried to get off backwards, it hurt. She was literally
stuck.
So she was able to clear it, heal it, talk about the emotions, the things that had come up, that she was frightened and all the rest of it. But the realization for her was she'd lived her whole life on the barbed wire fence.
Wow.
So it affected her on such a level that she was scared to make a decision to go forward, scared to make a decision about anything because she was living her life on the barbed wire fence. So when it was cleared, she just came out of the process and went, oh, my God.
Wow.
And it was like she felt so free, so she was able to make decisions. She said, it's still going to be a bit of a novelty.
Yes.
But I have this empowered part of myself now that's like, wow, I can actually make a decision. It's not going to hurt. It's okay.
Yeah. That's incredible because when you think about it, as humans, we are a very complex personalities, and something as simple as that can stop someone for the whole life. And we think to yourself, most people say, just get over it. But for some people, that may be just the trigger that has kept them from, as you said, making decisions or leading that better life. It's just incredible. And to get that cleared so she can now make decisions.
Absolutely.
Changed her life.
And so she came once.
Wow.
She didn't need to come again.
Yeah.
And so it depends on what's happening for that person and what needs to be worked with.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I have a 6-week program as well, which is called Pathway to Confidence, Clarity, and Trusting Yourself.
Yeah.
And that's an online program for an hour a week I only take 6 people in it.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's, and that is really teaching people to get in tune with their energy,
Yeah.
their communication, their values, their beliefs, and their body wisdom, and how they can use and work with that to start making decisions that they trust in themselves. So they stop listening to what other people are saying.
Yes.
Others' opinions sort of go into the background. They become much more empowered in themselves to trusting themselves, to making decisions that they feel are right for them. And it really helps in that way for them to then start to manifesting what they want in their life and taking action towards things that matter to them with a feeling of empowerment.
Best thing about all, as you said, you can do these online, is that we have a expat community that does listen to us, and they're able to connect with someone who is Australian, understands the way we think in Australia. So, if you are a expat living over in England or America, South America, Europe, you can connect with Prema and do this online. So it's good to know that. So, Prema, if people have experienced trauma, what are some of the tips you can give them right now to help them until they can possibly come and see you?
Sure. I would hope that if anyone who has trauma, that they could be working with someone, a professional. And some of the things that you can do right now is to really get into your body, because getting into the body means going for a walk in nature. It means going to the beach. It means putting your feet in the grass. It means looking out at the stars. It means a way of which getting connected into your body. And you can do this with drumming. So you can put drumming music on and just dance around the house, shake, like shaking the body. That will really shake a lot of things out. When you actually look at animals, if you actually really look at animals and the trauma response in an animal. So if you see say, for instance, the springbok in Africa, and the lion goes for it and it somehow gets away and the predator is gone, you will see the animal shake.
Yes.
You will see the animal shake. It will do a shake, and that is the shaking off of the emotion, of the trauma. That's what it is. It's actually shaking away, and then they're fine. Wow. So for us, though, with trauma, we shut down. We don't shake. We shut down, and that trauma gets locked in the cells. But if we could learn to deal with trauma, anything that happens, by shaking it out of our body, by really doing that, I'm talking about for present moment. So, but it's a way of getting back into your body. It's a way of getting back into the feelings in your body, not being scared of them, because a lot of people are really frightened of feeling their feelings.
Oh, yes.
And I just have to say, 18 years I've been doing this work, and I have to tell you that I have never seen anybody die of a feeling.
Yes.
But they've certainly been frightened of dying by feeling a feeling. But it's never happened.
Yes. I think
I'm talking about feeling it in your body. I'm not talking about projecting it.
Yes.
Because there are plenty of people who feel anger and project it. Which is, domestic violence.
Yes.
But I'm not talking about that, and that's the other thing with domestic violence, you'll have people that have gone through trauma.
Yes.
They have gone through trauma, and they have that rage and don't know how. So it projects, it comes out. But with feeling the feelings in the body, you can safely feel rage in your body.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be projected, and it won't cause you to have a heart attack. I promise you.
It's funny because as humans, when we have bad feelings, we just want to get rid of them very fast. And that's where this happens. You store them away. I will deal with that later. I don't want to know about that now. It's like that when you're watching a movie and you hide your face because you don't want to see the scary character. And I think that's what we do with our feelings.
Well, many of us haven't been taught to feel our feelings as children. We've been taught anything but
we're taught, man up, stop crying, don't get angry, don't speak to someone like that.
Yep.
And we bottle it up.
Exactly. Or another way is our parents would feed us. That was mine.
Oh, that was mine too. Yeah.
If I came home from school and something had happened and I felt sad, my mother would say, "Oh, have a piece of cake. You'll feel better."
Yeah.
Instead of letting me feel sad for 30 seconds, which is what it takes to go through the body.
Yes.
And then if there's another emotion under that, it comes. And if there's another emotion under that, it comes. What happens is every time, not sometimes, when you allow yourself to feel the feelings and you drop through, you'll drop through into what's called your source energy.
Yeah.
And in source energy, you know that you're connected to everything. You know that you are a part of everything. And this is a place where there's space.
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's been great chatting with you today, Prema. If people want to contact you to find out how you can help them change their lives or to find out more information, what's the best way we can contact you?
Okay, so they can contact me through my email, which is Prema Joy at Yahoo. So that's Prema, Prema, Joy, Joy, at yahoo.com. They can find me on Facebook. They can find me on TikTok. I'm on TikTok at Prema Joy with the number 2 after it. You can find me on LinkedIn. So there's lots of places, and I'm on Instagram, although I'm not on Instagram as much as I could be.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite place. So
I'm learning about it, so it takes a bit of time.
But you can find me on all of those other places. Please, if you want to know more, just send me an email. If you go on to TikTok, you can go over to the profile. You can book a 30-minute free conversation session with me.
Wow, great.
So, and I'm happy to just chat to you about whatever's going on in your life and how I could help you with that.
And, of course, as always, we're going to have all the contact details and links on our social media pages, and also look in the show notes because we're going to have them there as well. Prema, thank you so much for joining us today on the Adelaide Project Business Spotlight. It's been great insight of what you've talked about, and I think our listeners are going to get a lot out of it, so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been a real pleasure to be here, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Today on the Adelaide Project Business Spotlight podcast and radio show, we have been speaking with Prema Joy, the spiritual adventurer, a person who wants to help you live your best life. This podcast is brought to you by Podcast City. If you'd like to know more information about starting your own podcast, from planning your podcast to recording, editing, filming, and distributing your very own podcast to the world, just simply go to podcastcity.com.au. I'm Ron Fiedler for the Adelaide Project Business Spotlight. Until next time, bye for now.